Hello everybody and welcome to my new video all about Leagues 4. Today we're looking at each of the areas, what they unlock and any other items to consider. Firstly, thank you for your support on the first video. If you didn't see it, feel free to check it out, I'll link it in the description. Let me know in the comments what you would like me to cover in the next video, as it will be released the day before Leagues if everything goes to plan. This will be hints and tips and any last minute information. As of the 1st of November, Jagex has released an advent calendar worth of reveals and teasers for us. I hope you're as excited as I am to find out what's behind each box as they open them up in each individual day. The first area we'll look at is Mistlin. This is unlocked by default. So this covers everywhere from the bottom of Lumbridge Swamp all the way up to the Wildy Ditch, and from Barbarian Village all the way over to Patadermis, including areas such as Draenor Village, the Abyssal Nexus, the Enchanted Valley, Fossil Island, Xanaris, and Soul Wars, as you can access that through Edgeville. So we all start with 10 agility for the Draenor agility course. There is a good chance this will be packed on day 1 though. This also gives you access to forestry, which is new to this league, and it will be very beneficial early game since the worlds will be very busy, so there will be a lot of the events happening. Another interesting part for this is the museum quiz. This enables you to skip all of the slow hunter levels and jump straight up a couple of levels in, which also by extension gives us access to birdhouses after 8 crafting and 25 construction, and once you've got access to Fossil Island. We have full access to Fossil Island except for the Lithgorin Vault, due to this needing Dragonslayer 2 and by extension the Fremennik Province. You also have access to Herbivore for some semi-AFK Hunter XP in the later levels. So also on Fossil Island you have the Ammonite Crabs. However, it's very important to note that as these are very good AFK training XP for melee skills, these are going to be packed and there is only a very small selection of them. If these are packed after 2 weeks, I will be impressed, but the first week it will be nothing but people there. Other unlocks in this area are the quest unlocks. So we have the automatically completed quests on certain areas. So for Mistlin, this will be Dragonslayer 1, Druidic Ritual, Elemental Workshop 1, Tears of Guthix, Bon Voyage, Fairy Tale 2, and all of the prerequisites to that quest. This then allows you to have access to Fossil Island, you have access to Fairy Rings, this also gives you access to Elemental Shields, and of course with Druidic Ritual it gives you access to the Herblore skill as a whole. So access to the Abyssal area does not grant you access to the Abyss with the runic altars inside. That area is specifically part of the wilderness in Leagues, and will only be accessed once you completed Enter the Abyss and of course have the wilderness unlocked. The next area we'll be looking at is Karamja. This is unlocked within the tutorial, explaining to players how to unlock the areas. This gives you access to the entirety of the Karamja Island, except for the forest at the bottom, as that requires the Legends quest. This also includes the Fight Caves, the Inferno, and Brimhaven Dungeon, so be aware because Slayer creatures can be assigned within the Brimhaven Dungeon. You also, once completing the Tybo One-Eyed Trio quest, get access to Karambwans, which are excellent AFK fishing and the consequential cooking XP. However, if you're not much into the fishing, you can also purchase them from the shop. The area also includes the earliest access to teak and mahogany trees, charter ships for your crafting training, and it's the first area for your house portal. The charter ships do also give you access to super compost early on, and with the access to Fossil Island you can make it into ultra compost very quickly. Once you have access to Shiloh Village, you also get access to the gem mines for semi-fast mining XP. You have a salmon spot in the middle of the river, and you also have Duradel Slayer for late game Slayer. So all of this as a whole island gives a fair amount of different options. However, I do believe that Mistlin will be better for most of these. The next area we're going to discuss is Asgarnia. Now, Asgarnia covers the rest of the free-to-play areas. It also includes Tavali, Burthorpe, and the Troll Stronghold. The Troll Stronghold, of course, giving you access to God Wars. It also includes Pest Control and Entrana. So this is the only area that will give you access to the higher tier God Wars equipment. It also is the area for Void Knight equipment, Cerberus drops, the Crafting Guild, which gives you access to the closest bank with a skill cape, the Whisperer with the Desert Treasure to unlock, and it also gives you access to Nex, both of which are new content for this league. It is important to note though that if you want a max cape, you can only have it if you access Asgarnia, as you can't access the island any other way. Now Asgarnia has a number of different drops for this area, and they are all high-end late-game drops, but it might not be as prominent as it has been in the other leagues, as a lot of people chose this as their last unlock when they were going for their last few items. Asgarnia also contains the Mining Guild and Motherlode Mine for AFK mining, and the Warriors Guild for the Defender grinds that I'm sure you all know and love. The next area I'm going to discuss is the desert. Now last leagues the desert was very much dead content, but now there is an awful lot in the area. The desert includes all of Al-Kharid, Nada, Polnavich, Sopanum, and all of the desert-like areas. This includes Temperos, Nada Potion Combiner, and the Crushing Boy. The Desert Treasures questline, which is going to be auto-completed on Unlock to the Desert, TOA, and Giant's Foundry. This also is going to give access to Guardians of the Rift, as the quest does start in the desert. Pyramid Plunder last time had a lot of tasks, which means there'll be a lot of points up for grabs once again. And as my prediction, TOA is going to have a similar amount of tasks to that TOB had last time, and Cox will have this time as well. We now come to Kandarin, which is going to be the second largest area in the league, only due to Zaya. Kandarin is from White Wolf Mountain all the way over to Piscatorius, and Barbarian Assault all the way down to Corsair Cove. This includes all of your RD, but you cannot access the underground pass. In Trailblazer, you could pay the Dark Mage to receive an Ivan Staff after unlocking Kandarin, so it's important to note that you can get your mid-level Mage Staff from it still. If you are going to go after the Piety and Chivalry prayers, you do need Asgarnia, as you need to unlock areas within the Goblin Village. Kandarin also has an awful lot of quests within it, including high XP quests such as Waterfall Quest, Grand Tree, and Fight Arena. There are also areas for Hunter, so the Red Chins and the Private Red Chin area, and that is a good note to say that all general stores will have access to box traps, and Eagle's Peak will not be required for their use. Kandarin also has Barbarian Fishing, the Seer's Rooftop course, and the RD Rooftop Agility Training. This area, with its such large capacity, also has access to 6 different skill capes, which includes the Ranging Cape, which could be very helpful without access to Mauritania. The next area I wish to discuss is that of Turanwim. This includes all of the Elven lands, so this includes your Zora and your Gauntlet. There is also access to the Red Chin hunting area that is just north of Prith. So with all of that, you have access to the Bofa, the Crystal Armor, Blowpipe, and Serp Helm, to name just a few. There is also the high-level agility training and high-level thieving. With regards to the Blowpipe, maintaining darts may be the problem, assuming we do not have a similar relic to that we did in the first Trailblazer, but do remember that Tourist Trap is required to smith dart tips. It is not required to fletch the darts once you have the tips. In a similar vein, getting the crystals to enchant the crystal weaponry and crystal armor will also be interesting, as the reduced rates means that you won't have to do as many gauntlets to receive them, so you might have to do some more thieving just to supplement them. And finally, for Turanwin, the Slayer dungeon has a variety of creatures, and it's all single combat in there, so you'll have a large Slayer unlock with that area. We're now going to discuss Mauritania. This is all of the corrupted lands from the east, including Mostly Harmless and Harmony Island. This primarily gives you access to the Ectofungus, TOB, Barrows, and Darkmere. This also includes the Canaphis Agility area, which is very good mid-level agility, and the Werewolf Agility course if you're that way inclined. With regards to the late game content, you have the Nightmare, TOB, and some mid-game content being the Barrows. You also have access to the Slayer Tower. The Slayer Tower has a lot of creatures in it and is a good way to get your whips for that area, unless you have Zaya unlocked, in which case you should be able to get whips that way instead. Moving on to the Wilderness. Now the Wilderness by itself is the area. It contains all of the Wilderness bosses, even the new mini bosses. It contains the Chaos Altar, the Rev Caves, and of course PKing. Because of the new worldy bosses and the rework, you have access to the Void Waker, which is new to Trailblazer Reloaded. You also have access to the Rev weapons and the Revs themselves, being the consistent moneymaker that they are. You also have Wieldy Slayer, which in Shattered Relics and in previous leagues was a prime meta due to being able to choose your own Slayer tasks. You also have access to the Black Chins for the fastest Hunter XP in the late game, even though you will be chased down by PKers that are out and about. And you also have the Mage Arena for the Mage Arena 2 capes for their best in slot magic abilities. We're now going to discuss Fremennik. So this will include all of the Fremennik province, including Luda Isle, Jatizo, Netisnot, the Lighthouse, Waterbirth Isle, and Miscellanea. Within the Fremennik province, you'll get their Slayer Dungeon, which is a variety of single combat creatures. They're all very good for clue scrolls. You have access to the Dagnoth Kings for their rings, the access to Lunar Magic, mid-level agility in the Relica Rooftop course, and you also have access to the underground area of Keldagrim. This gives you access to the Blast Furnace, as well as a number of different shops. The final area we're going to discuss is also the biggest, and that is Zaya. It has been confirmed that this will be all of Kourend and the Kebos lowlands, and within this there is a little bit of everything. There is a reason why there was a whole league based in Zaya, being the Twisted League. There are all levels of fishing, from shrimp all the way up to anglers. If you want to go for the barbarian fishing outside the Chambers of Xeric, you will still need Candoring for this. You do have access to the Arceus Library for low-level rune crafting, and Mage if you are that way inclined, but there are much better ways for that. For the later levels of rune crafting, you have the Blood and Soul Altars, and there are also some hunter areas within Zaya for you to get some hunter levels, but there are better areas for this. As we discussed earlier, the Ammonite crabs are going to be insanely busy. Zaya gives you access for the sand crabs, which there are more of, and they are not that different in XP rates. Zaya also gives you access to the Tithe Farm. Now with the recent rework, this should give you insane XP for a not drastic amount of time spent in there. Zaya also provides the Arceus Spellbook, which in turn gives the Ensouled Heads. This is going to be a very good alternative to Prayer XP if you don't have Mauritania or the Wilderness, but it will be a large drain on runes. It also has the Woodcutting Guild for AFK woodcutting, and a few other options like thieving. I'm a little bit biased about this because this is where I got my Rocky pet. And you've also got the reworks with Chambers of Xeric for the high level end content. The last couple of bits of notable content will be the fact you have Konar for Konar Slayer, so it gives you a little bit extra with the Brimstone Keys, and more importantly, the Catacombs of Kourend. This is a large number of Slayer creatures with some very good drop rates and very good XP rates that will provide a lot of entertainment for the time during leagues. So with all of this in mind, I'd like to close by putting in a little tier list. Now remember, this is purely my opinion. Feel free to have the discussion in the comments. I'm more than happy to have a discussion with all of you guys and listen to your views on things. This is my personal opinion, as, for example, I would take the Wilderness and put it in D tier, because I am not going to enjoy the PKing aspect, personally, I'm much more of a PvMer. The other D tier is Fremenic. Now, Fremenic doesn't really offer anything special or anything that I really need for the rest of my leagues. So they are both in my D tier. Moving on to C, the first one I'd like to put in there would be Tyranwin. Now, this is purely because of the reduced drop rates, the fact that maintaining all of the equipment requires you to go back to the same bosses, and the fact that this area, even though it does have some important objects, it again doesn't offer a drastic amount. The other area I'd put into C tier is Karamja. Now again, this area, if it wasn't a free unlock, would probably drop down into my D tier. Besides having the Fire Cape and the end level Inferno content, there is not a drastic amount for me in here. Maybe Duradel, but I think the only important bit that I will be in Karamja for is the Karam ones. Moving on to the B tier, this is where it starts to flesh out a little bit. So much to, I'm sure, a lot of people's surprise, the first one in here will be Kandarin. Now Kandarin does provide a massive area, some very good XP rewards, but it's all early to mid-game content. So once you've done it all, you're not really going back to Kandarin after that. The next one is Mauritania. So this has, again, a good variety, but it doesn't really support itself. It needs the support of the other areas to provide the all-round content that some of the other areas need. The final one is Asgarnia. Now once again, Asgarnia was the meta in the last Trailblazer League. However, this time round, there are other areas that can provide the same thing that it provides, excluding the obvious being the God Swords and the God Equipment. Moving on to the A tier now, the first area that I will be discussing is the fact of the desert. The desert in the previous Trailblazer League was an absolute bust, and it was a running joke that you shouldn't have taken the desert in the last league. However, with the new updates, the new TOA, and Desert Treasure 2, it adds a lot more reasons for the desert to become active. Now, that's why it's in my A tier. The only other area in my A tier is Misthalin. Now, I know we all choose this one, but it's such a varied and has a lot of different activities that you can do that it could keep you going for the majority of the league. Now, it's onto my S tier. The only S tier area I have got is Zaya. Zaya contains absolutely everything you could ever need. Again, hence why it had its own league. This has low-level content, mid-level content, high-level content. It is very much a jack-of-all-trades, ace-of-none type of area, which is what you need when you're running around in a temporary game mode. So that is my tier list as a whole. I'm sure that there's a lot of people that have their own opinions in this, and I'd love to hear from you. Please do let me know. The last thing that you need to remember when you're picking your areas is that you have access to Mahogany Homes, which is limited to your areas unlocked. However, I'm not sure whether you need Asgarnia to start in this in Falador. Let's hope not. The clue scrolls that you pick up will be limited to your area. The areas that you will be unlocking will unlock new Slayer creatures, so be aware when you're blocking tasks that the weightings within this league will be completely thrown off. And pets. Pets go across all of the leagues, so you don't have to be disheartened if you happen to be one of the lucky ones. You won't lose it at the end of the league, and I'll be sure to be getting my Rocky out of the bank as soon as we log in. So with all of this information, remember, make the leagues what you want to enjoy. Choose what you will enjoy. It is a very good opportunity to give late game content a try if you are a lower level player. So you can try any of the raids or Nightmare or any of the other high level bosses. It is important to know you do not need to decide now or all at once. Once you unlock the ability to choose, then you have to choose. Make your own informed decisions. Just because your favourite streamers or YouTubers are picking particular areas doesn't mean you need to follow suit. If they are, however, picking the areas you want, then go for it. Make sure you are doing your own thing. Now, thank you for listening to this. Don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the game.